Welcome to the Spokesman Speaks, a podcast for farmers and ag professionals by the Iowa Farm Bureau, bringing you the news, experts, and educational insights that matter most. Now, here's your host.
Welcome to our August 4th edition of the Spokesman Speaks podcast. I'm Andrew Wheeler. 1 month ago, President Trump signed the One Big Beautiful Bill Act into law. As the name implies, there was a lot in the bill, including some crucial provisions for agriculture. American Farm Bureau economist Danny Munch has closely studied what's in the One Big Beautiful Bill for agriculture, and he sat down to discuss it with Spokesman editor Tom Block last month.
Danny, thanks for joining us here on the podcast to talk about the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. And this piece of legislation has all kinds of things in it, including a lot of stuff for agriculture. So for starters, how would you summarize the most important provisions of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act for farmers, especially row crop and livestock producers?
Yeah, so in general, H.R. 1, One Big Beautiful Bill, it's a broad reauthorization of Farm Bill's non-discretionary spending programs. So a lot of the major programs you think about when you think about Farm Bill, ARC, PLC, dairy margin coverage, your commodity programs, as well as enhancing crop insurance, your conservation programs, reworking funding into those, trade programs were enhanced, and as well as a number of other programs related to animal health, disaster assistance were all improved, enhanced on, and continued through 2031 from the One Big Beautiful Bill Act.
And the bill itself does increase spending for farm programs by quite a lot. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so the Congressional Budget Office, which is a nonpartisan office that looks at how spending from the federal government will be impacted or revenue generation, they scored farm program impacts at a plus up of $66 billion. $59 billion of that is linked to your commodity programs and crop insurance, so ARC, PLC, dairy margin coverage, as well as $5.8 billion for crop insurance changes. The rest of that, there's $2.7 billion for disaster assistance increases, $2.1 billion in trade increases, miscellaneous about 1.6, research is up 1.6, and then horticulture and energy up about 400 million. So overall, this is a major investment in our farm programs and continues a lot of those heart programs that we see in the Farm Bill.
Yeah, it was really a way to get some of these Farm Bill programs extended and reauthorized. Like you said, we've been working on these things for 2 one-year extensions of the Farm Bill. So let's dig into that a little bit. From a row crop perspective especially, the bill raises reference prices and adjusts ARC and PLC payments. How will that improve the financial safety net for farmers?
Yeah, so on the PLC front, obviously, for all these years, we've been advocating that those price triggers, those reference prices in PLC, for instance, have not kept up with modern times, right? They're too low to sort of trigger in what farmers are currently experiencing input costs and the global market. So the bill raises statutory reference prices, those price guarantees for major covered commodities by 11 to 21%. For corn, they went up from $3.70 to $4.10. Soybeans, $8.40 to $10 per bushel. Wheat, $5.50 to $6.35, for example. So pretty strong plus ups. Not everything all farmers wanted, but a really good increase in those baselines. They also increased the PLC effective reference price escalator from 85% to 88% of the Olympic average, and that will help create a better buffer during those times of low prices as well over a longer term period. Under ARC, you have better revenue guarantees from 86% to 90% and raising the maximum payment that folks can receive from 10% to 12% of the benchmark revenue starting with 2025. So even these minor changes will provide a lot better buffer when farmers are facing lower revenues, lower prices out there, and really links back to why there's so much more funding going to be linked to those programs primarily, which is why we see that big increase in commodity programs.
And really trying to help the program adjust to inflationary pressures instead of just setting a price, letting the market adjust a little bit and help farmers out when they really need it.
Yes. The places they were before, farmers, even if they're receiving higher prices, they're still not breaking anywhere even just because of the inflation, as you mentioned, related day with elevated input costs across the board, interest expenses, and everything else that goes into the bottom line.
And one thing to note for this year, producers will automatically get the higher of the ARC or PLC payment. How will that benefit farmers, and especially because this bill was passed after farmers already made their planning decisions?
Yeah, it basically gives them the flexibility that, Congress has failed to offer in the past few years, right? If they finally passed this, got this done through this reconciliation process, our farmers were concerned they weren't going to be able to make the best decisions based off of available information when they didn't know what numbers they were to be relying on. So being able to get the best of either one for this year will help their bottom line and help them protect themselves this year.
And the bill gives farmers the option to add new base acres for the first time in over a decade. What's the significance of that? And do we have details yet on how to update and some of the measures around that?
Yeah, so the first time in over a decade, USDA will allow up to 30 million new base acres to be allocated in those programs that have historically produced program crops but don't currently have base acres. So if you've changed a crop, maybe you've added soybeans, but it was in oat acreage, for instance, now you might be able to update that depending on how USDA approaches this, which, like you mentioned, there's still some details that have to be fleshed out, but this will allow a lot more flexibility in how folks have changed their operations. They have mentioned that eligibility is based on planting history from 2019-2023. Farmers won't have to give up existing base to qualify, and allocations are proportionally tied to past plantings. And those new base acres can make producers eligible for future PLC or ARC payments starting in 2026. So this is going to add quite a bit of flexibility for growers that have had some of those changes.
And there's also some expanded crop insurance provisions, especially an increase in some of the government share of those payments to help farmers purchase those products that help guard against their losses in revenue. I think we saw last year with some increases in the government share of the crop insurance really incentivizes farmers to take advantage of those programs.
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to the, age-old, how do we balance disaster assistance ad hoc payments, which are generally more expensive to the federal government, and still incentivizing farmers to enroll in crop insurance, which we know when they enroll in crop insurance, it does provide this safeguard against disasters. So the bill increases the government's share of crop insurance premiums by 3 to 5 percentage points across all farmer-selected coverage levels, and that's making it more affordable for our producers. The maximum coverage level for area-based plans is increased to 95%, and premium subsidy for those plans is raised from 65% to 80%. So, for example, if you had between 55 and 64% farmer-selected coverage level, that would have been bumped up to 69% from 65%. Just as another example, over 85 from 38% to 41%. So making it more affordable for farmers to buy crop insurance, which around the country will hopefully incentivize even more plants to be purchased. And during times of disaster, weather disaster, disease, or price declines, farmers can see a little bit more protection and get indemnities paid out in a quicker manner than ad hoc disaster assistance usually pays out.
That was something our farmers definitely mentioned, is sometimes those disaster programs are such a delay that they don't help you in the current time where you need the income. So very good provisions there. Let's jump ahead. Talk about some of the bill's livestock provisions. There's various things in there, some funding for animal disease preparedness, vaccine manufacturing, and also some conservation funding, which can tie in with livestock production.
Yeah, so I'll start with some of the disaster assistance changes. We know there are disaster assistance programs within Farm Bill framework. That's Livestock Indemnity Program, Livestock Forage Disaster Program, and the Emergency Assistance for Livestock, Honeybees, and Farm-Raised Fish. There's also a Tree Assistance Program, but obviously doesn't impact folks in Iowa as much. But for Livestock Indemnity Program, they revised to provide 100% of market value payments for animals lost to predation versus 75% prior, as well as 75% compensation for animals lost to adverse weather or disease, which has been a problem in Iowa in previous years. Livestock Forage Disaster Program, which helps pay for forage during times of drought. That's expanded to improve access and payment levels. You can have fewer consecutive weeks of drought and still qualify, and it allows for a second month if drought extends to 7 or 8 weeks. Some of the other livestock provisions, you mentioned the National Animal Disease Preparedness Program. This bill pluses up spending by 7 times over. So $233 million spent per year on animal disease prevention or response. That means more resources to stockpile vaccines, bolster veterinary diagnostics, and train state responders, which is essential right now, especially as we've dealt with HPAI, as we deal with, the potentials of a screwworm issue along the southern border, and many of the other diseases that we see come in through invasive species or just other sorts of animal health pathways. Under dairy, we saw some gains that were Farm Bureau policy and priorities for dairy margin coverage. Historically, folks weren't able to update their production history. It was based on 2011, 12, or 13 production history. And now folks are going to be able to use much more recent production history for 2021 to 2023 to add to that enrollment baseline. They're also lifting the Tier 1 coverage level, which is the most affordable levels of coverage under dairy margin coverage, from £5 million to £6 million. So the program's still geared towards smaller to mid-sized producers, but we're getting closer to that average 8.45 million pound farm to have that lower cost protection. There's also still in place that which they extended. Those who commit to a multi-year DMC coverage receive a 25% discount, which helps a lot with the bottom line if folks choose to protect their margins over a longer course in time. And I'll also flag, a big priority for Farm Bureau, especially in the federal milk marketing order space, was having a mandatory and audited survey of processors' costs. And that helps set make allowances within a dairy farmer's check, which we've had a lot of, back and forth with us being, as Farm Bureau, worried about dairy farmers' prices being artificially lowered because of high make allowances. Now this survey, which was authorized by the bill, allows us to collect mandatory data and means in the future we're able to have accurate data that we can use to update those make allowances. So that's good to see as well. On the conservation side of things, the bill continues long-term funding for the major conservation programs like EQIP, CSP, and ASEP. Those basically took some of the funds from the Inflation Reduction Act and put them into the baseline for conservation programs in the One Big Beautiful Bill. So we continue to see plus-ups there. You also see continuation of some other smaller conservation programs like Grassroots Source Water Protection Program and the Feral Swine Eradication and Control Program, which in a state like Iowa with a lot of pork, we want to keep those invasive species at bay to prevent animal health issues from moving forward.
Talk about some of the other programs, touch on briefly some trade promotion programs and also some energy programs, also very important for biofuels here in Iowa.
On the trade front, there was sort of some jurisdictional gymnastics that happened while the bill was being talked about. Originally, they were just going to plus up the market access program and foreign market development program with new money, but they ran into a situation where there was something related to Cuba in the bill, and then it would have had to been referred to the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. So to avoid that, they made a new agricultural trade promotion and facilitation program that mirrors the regular programs, MAP and FMD, but instead of having to go through those jurisdictional issues. So the new programs provides $285 million in permanent mandatory funding. So with the existing MAP and FMD, that's almost double trade promotion, which helps going into advertising and marketing and accessing markets overseas. On the energy side of things, reauthorizes the bioenergy program for advanced biofuels through 2031, and that provides payments to producers of renewable fuels like biodiesel, cellulosic ethanol, and other next-generation biofuels. Down in the tax provisions, the 45Z clean fuel production credit, it extends and modifies that production credit and limits it to American-controlled firms using feedstocks from the U.S., Mexico, or Canada. So there was worries prior to the announcement of, Brazil being able to take advantage of some of those credits. Now it's been limited to feedstocks from North America and will help bolster production of those renewable fuels as well.
And that's a good point to transition into the other part of this bill that really affects agriculture, and that's the tax provisions. This bill extends and in a lot of cases makes permanent some of those tax provisions that were due to expire from the Tax Cut and Jobs Act that was passed under Trump's first administration.
Yeah, so, one of the biggest efforts that Farm Bureau has been pushing is making the estate tax exemption permanent, which we did succeed with in this bill. The bill locks in at $15 million exemption per person, $30 million for couples. If it had expired, that would have went down to $5.5 million that you would have, anything over that would have fallen under taxable transfers. So this allows a family farmer to be able to transfer down to the next generation without having a massive tax burden and really helps that longer term stability. You also had Section 199A, which allows family farms, which are often sole proprietorships or partnerships, to get some of that same tax status as a corporation, where it gives them a 20% tax deduction for pass-through businesses, which for a corporation, they're getting a 21% tax, but if they were taxed as a pass-through, it would have been much more expensive. So a lot of savings there. And there were numerous other tax policy changes as well. Farmers can now expense up to $2.5 million in equipment and capital improvements like barns, fencing, or irrigation. Bonus depreciation, which was being phased out, is restored, letting farms deduct the full cost of major investments up front. And then even clean fuel tax credits, like I mentioned with ethanol and biodiesel, those are being expanded and supports both dairy producers as well as crop farmers and other livestock producers. So good tax changes in the bill as well, alongside everything else.
And I won't pretend to be a tax expert, but I think the thing that this really does, both on the tax side and on a lot of those farm provisions, is give farmers the certainty, allowing farmers to really plan for things.
Yeah, so the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which was back in 2017, a lot of those provisions were about to expire this year. And now this One Big Beautiful Bill makes them permanent, so we don't have to readdress them moving forward like we do often with a farm bill. We have every 5 years to reauthorize, but some of these more policy changes are able to be addressed more long-term and, again, provides more certainty to our producers.
Now, you alluded to the fact earlier that while this bill did a lot for agriculture, it didn't do everything, and that's because of the way it was compiled through the budget reconciliation process. So take us through the whole process of how this came to be and some of the provisions that Farm Bureau is still looking to have as priorities going forward.
Yeah, so reconciliation, for folks that don't know, it's a special legislative process that allows certain budget-related bills to pass with a simple majority in the Senate. So when I say budget-related, it has to be directly related to funding of a program or raising revenue from taxes, those sorts of items. And that lets, a government that might be controlled by one party like we have now work on their agenda more effectively when they only have to deal with 51 senators versus 60 senators. So it has to go through what is called the Byrd Rule. Basically, it's the Senate parliamentarian reviews each provision in the bill. And if it is not related to a budget-related issue, again, raising money or spending money, it might not pass the Byrd Rule as the parliamentarian reports and could be knocked out of the bill. So there were some provisions that did not make it into the final version. And that's why you see most of the things we've talked about today are related to funding or taxation programs. So there's some policy-related provisions as well as other items that might be related to funding that kind of slip through the cracks and we need to get done before December.
And we've heard House Agriculture Committee Chairman G.T. Thompson talk about a skinny farm bill that would include some of these provisions. But what are some of those issues? I know for us here in Iowa, interstate commerce affected by California's Prop 12 and the E15 year-round, which is kind of an issue that's been hanging out there. Those two big issues that could potentially be addressed in a skinny farm bill?
Yes, Prop 12, that's something that's at the top of mind for both that Senate and House Ag Committee, making sure there's an easy to understand policy fix. It wasn't really related to funding or revenue. It's more interstate commerce. So hoping we get a fix in there that provides some equitable treatment to our states. There's other items that kind of slip through, like the reauthorization of the Conservation Reserve Program, which so many farmers rely on to, help set aside land for conservation purposes. That's something we have to look into. Things related to the rural development title and credit title have to be addressed. Broadband funding, not as talked about in or addressed in One Big Beautiful Bill Act. And then there's obviously so many other priorities we have at Farm Bureau that we might not have been able to get in this one that hopefully we might be able to get them to look at in a skinny farm bill. Things like milk check transparency is one that comes to mind as a dairy person, but so many other items, especially crop support, more disease and research support that we can get in there.
And if folks want to find out more about what was in the One Big Beautiful Bill or just any of these other issues, the economics team at American Farm Bureau do market intels several times a week that really dive into these issues. So tell people how they can get their eyes on those.
Yeah, and this was very much a team effort. Each of us covers different portfolio items, and this covers everyone's portfolio items. So, we have economist Samantha covers taxes, Faith is covering farm bill programs, Barrett covers livestock, and I'm covering, kind of a mishmash of everything in between in dairy. But that's all at fb.org/market intel. You can go on there, you can scroll down, put your email in, and get that information directly in your email. It's all free. It takes complex subjects, boils them down into generally a shorter piece. This one is a One Big Beautiful Market Intel because it's so long. And there's so much information in there, but easier to understand graphics that you can help to share to your legislators as well. They're for consumers, they're for our members, they're for everybody. And we're always looking for more ideas too, so open to feedback as well, but fb.org.
Thanks, Danny. It's great to see some longtime ag priorities finally reach the finish line through the One Big Beautiful Bill. If you'd like to read more specifics about what's in the bill for agriculture, we've included the American Farm Bureau Market Intel article written by Danny Munch and his colleagues linked down in the notes for this episode. We also provided a link to the homepage of the Market Intel site so you can review other recent articles by American Farm Bureau economists and subscribe to receive future articles in your inbox. Okay, let's put the policy conversation on hold because later this week we kick off the 2025 Iowa State Fair. Frequent fairgoers know that Iowa Farm Bureau is right in the middle of the action, so we wanted to bring on a member of our team to talk about the entertainment, prizes, free health screenings, and drawings we'll be offering folks who visit us at the fair. Once again, here's Spokesman Editor Tom Block with Senior Marketing Coordinator Tanner Nissen.
Tanner, we're just a few days away from the Iowa State Fair. There's always plenty to do at Iowa Farm Bureau Park, games to play and chances to win. Tell us briefly what people can expect when they come to Farm Bureau Park and who they're going to meet.
This year at Farm Bureau Park, we'll have lots of our member volunteers there. So fairgoers can meet real Iowa farmers to connect with those farmers and get the chance to play some fun games, to learn about ag trivia, and win some fun prizes while they're out there.
What are some of the daily activities that go on at the park? I know we always have a lot of interest in those health screenings. Talk about also the theme for the park this year.
The theme this year for the Iowa State Fair at Farm Bureau Park is Iowa Farmers, Greatest of All Time, the GOAT. So when it comes to sports debates, everybody likes to debate on who's the GOAT, whether it's MJ or LeBron, Brady or Mahomes. But when it comes to agriculture, there is no debate with that. Iowa farmers are number one in several production categories, but leading the way in conservation practices as well. So the theme of Iowa Farm Bureau Park is to really just celebrate the Iowa farmers, how they're leading the way in conservation practices and through innovation, and then kind of just touching base on those daily activities. We will have lots of daily screenings with our health partners there. Fairgoers can learn about hands-only CPR training, AED training. They can have some special tips on everyday stretching exercises, glaucoma screenings through Wolf Eye Clinic. So there's really great opportunities out at the state fair to have those health partner screenings as well. And then we have lots of activities throughout the state fair. The biggest day will be with a cookout contest on Farm Bureau Day. This year will be the 61st annual cookout contest, which takes place on Tuesday, August 12th of the fair. There will be 47 participants currently coming from 22 different counties across Iowa. And we're excited to have our celebrity judges, Ed Wilson and Eric Hansen, on board for that as well. There's several different categories that the cookout contestants will be participating in, and we're looking to crown our grand champion at Iowa Farm Bureau Day on Tuesday, August 12th.
And there's always sort of a buzz around the park, a lot of things going on, a lot of activities. And when people come to learn about farming, have some fun little prizes, things that they can win. But also one of the things that was introduced last year was these pull tabs that were very popular and also help support our commodity partners. So talk about some of the activities, the prizes, and those pull tabs.
Our pull tabs were a huge success last year. If anyone's not familiar with a pull tab, it's very similar to a scratcher lottery ticket. But the way this works is we're giving away free food made by our commodity groups. So you can play the Farm Strong Challenge, win a great prize after answering 3 questions about Iowa agriculture. And then for all contestants over the age of 18, you'll win a Polling for Iowa Farmers pull tab. And if all 3 of your polls are the same icon, then you win that prize. So the food prizes we're giving away are cheeseburgers, pork chop on a stick, a turkey leg, and an ice cream cone. So they're all fair favorite foods, and they're all made possible by Iowa farmers. We'll have over 10,000 chances for you to win, so come on out to Farm Bureau Park and play.
Let's also turn our attention to some of the major prizes that are available. It's always worthwhile for people to come out to the Farm Bureau Park for the different drawings that we have, whether it's for current members, people joining Farm Bureau or just visitors to the park?
We're giving away a lot of great prizes out there at the State Fair. This year, our member prize, so all Iowa Farm Bureau members, come on by, scan either your Spokesman address label or your family living label or your membership card. Once you get that scanned, you'll automatically be entered in to win a $5,000 prize package for $2,500 in food and $2,500 in fuel. And when you scan your membership card, you'll also receive the free member gift. This year, it's a crossbody belt bag. So we're really excited to see all of our members out there to get entered into the prize drawing. Even if you're not a member, there's still great ways to win. We have our membership benefit challenge. This just highlights and showcases the value of being an Iowa Farm Bureau through our benefit partners. There'll be QR codes out at the fair that you can scan and answer questions about our benefit partners. Once you're done with the quiz, they'll automatically enter you in to a $500 drawing for groceries. So last year, there were about 2,300 people that submitted that member benefit challenge. So great chance for you to win $500 in groceries. And then another way to win is if you're not an Iowa Farm Bureau member and you become a new member out at the State Fair, first off, we'll give you a nice thank you gift of a $10 Fairway gift card, but then you'll also be automatically entered in for a $1,000 prize package of $500 of food and $500 of fuel. So great opportunities to win through Farm Bureau Park, and we're excited to see everyone out there.
And Tanner, you mentioned the cookout contest is one of the special days. There's also several other special days at the fair. We have Young Farmer Day. We have a day where we honor Century and Heritage Farm Award winners. And Farm Bureau's also been a longtime participant in the Governor's Charity Steer Show. So just talk about some of those other activities, both in the park and then those things happening outside the park as well.
Yeah, Farm Bureau definitely has their handprint out at the State Fair and lots of different events. Our Young Farmers Day will take place on Saturday, August 9th. And that's where our key volunteers and young farmers will kind of take over Farm Bureau Park. They'll set up lots of fun games for young kiddos to kind of explore and look at what life on a farm is like, play some really fun games, and win a great prize with that as well. Young Farmers Day takes place on Saturday, August 9th. And then also on Saturday, August 9th at 4 p.m. in the Pioneer Livestock Pavilion is our Governor's Charity Steer Show. We're proud to have our board member and vice president, Brian Feldposh, as the celebrity show person. He'll be showing with the steer owner, Lucas Sheehan from Remsen. His dad is a board member in Plymouth County, and they'll be showing Rocky the steer. So that takes place on Saturday, August 9th. And then a really special time at the State Fair is celebrating those Century and Heritage Farm Awards. So that's 100-year farms and 150-year farms. So it's really a great opportunity in conjunction with IDOLS to celebrate those farms. This year, there'll be 246 Century Farm Awards and 203 Heritage Farm Awards. That takes place on Thursday, August 14th at 9 a.m. And it's just a great opportunity to look at all the great farms and their heritage in Iowa.
Tanner, as always, there's a whole lot going on at Farm Bureau Park during the State Fair. Where can people go to learn more?
Yeah, you can go to iowafarmbureau.com. We've got a sliding page on there with all the details for the State Fair. So if you're looking for one of those specific health partner screenings, we've got the full calendar of events there. You can find all the information. This was a kind of a crash course in the State Fair. So if we've missed anything, you can definitely go check out iowafarmbureau.com and go to that State Fair tab, and you'll find all the information regarding the State Fair there.
And for people who are regulars at the State Fair, they know where Farm Bureau Park is, but if someone's new, kind of explain how people can find us there.
Yeah, Farm Bureau Park is kind of the heart of the action. We're right off the Grand Concourse, just east of the Varied Industries building. Once you go through the maze of the Varied Industries building and you get your tattoos, you get all your stickers and your freebies in there, come visit us at Farm Bureau Park to play some great games, learn about ag trivia, and grab your pull tab and grab a pork chop on a stick to win.
We're excited to see each of you at the Iowa State Fair this year. For a rundown of everything Tanner just covered and more on Iowa Farm Bureau's many offerings for state fairgoers, check out the link down in the notes for this podcast episode. That's all for this edition of the Spokesman Speaks podcast. We hope you enjoyed it and that you'll join us for our next episode on August 18th. Thank you for doing the work that inspires everything we do here at the Iowa Farm Bureau, and thanks for listening to the Spokesman Speaks.
Thank you for listening to the Spokesman Speaks, a podcast by Iowa Farm Bureau. Check out more podcast episodes at iowafarmbureau.com/podcast. You can also find and subscribe to the Spokesman Speaks podcast in the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and other popular podcast apps. We appreciate your ratings and reviews, and we welcome you to email us your feedback at podcast@ifbf.org.